My mom, Hannah, is a blonde with blue eyes. She is very intelligent and well-mannered, and at the same time very beautiful, with a slim figure. She has 2 college degrees and is generally a lovely person, although her temper can be difficult at times. She is strong-willed and independent, which is probably why my father left us when my brother Jacob was only a year old. My dad couldn't handle her strength and determination, which is probably why he left us. No matter what, my mom always did her best to take care of us. That's where my story begins. It was January outside, cold and frosty, and my mom, younger brother, and I were supposed to go to a small town to visit relatives. I'm 18, my mom is 41, and Jacob is only 1 year old. Mom had a driver's license and an old car, a Ziguli, which the 3 of us used to make the trip. None of us wanted to go, but we had no choice. We needed a fresh start, and we hoped that visiting relatives would help us move forward. The first 100 kilometers went without problems, but then we had to get onto the main highway, followed by a forest road. There was asphalt here, but it was all potholed and it was hard to drive. The car shook and jolted as we tried to go around the most serious bumps, but it wasn't easy. My mom was tense, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly, and she was focused on keeping us safe. After about an hour of driving on this rough road, the car broke down. There was snow and woods all around us, and not a soul around. The engine hissed and then stopped altogether, leaving us stranded in the middle of nowhere. I remember the feeling of terror that gripped me as I looked out over the vast white expanse. It felt like we were completely alone and the cold was creeping through the car windows. Fortunately, after a while a tractor drove by and stopped. A man who looked to be about 50 years old got out. He was wearing an old sweater, simple pants, and boots. He had a large black mustache under his nose and gray eyes. He introduced himself as William and his voice was warm and kind. William inspected our car and said he could tow us to his village and he would fix it in the morning and we could hit the road. My mom was not happy, but we had no choice and she agreed. I could see the reluctance in her eyes, but there was no other option. William towed us to a remote village and put his tractor and our car in the barn. He invited us into his house for warmth and tea. My mother fed my brother first and put him to bed in one of the rooms of the house. I watched her as she moved about caring for Jacob and her face softened as she looked at him. It was in those moments that I saw her vulnerability, her love for us no matter what. William lived alone. His house was small but cozy, with shabby furniture that seemed to have years of history woven into it. While we warmed ourselves with mugs of tea, he had time to heat the bath. Then he came back to our table and we chatted for a while. He told us about life in the village, how he had lived there all his life, and how much he enjoyed the solitude. My mom listened, and the expression on her face gradually changed from wary to relaxed. After an hour, I decided to go to the bathhouse to wash up. My mother and William stayed at the table talking. I couldn't help but notice that Mom was constantly smiling at him, something I hadn't seen in a long time. It was strange to see her like that, as if she had let her guard down for the first time in years. When I returned from the bath, it was Mama's turn to go inside. William sat for a while longer and then went into the bathhouse too. I looked out the window and noticed that he hadn't come out for about 10 minutes. Feeling a little uneasy, I decided to check it out. As I left the house and approached the bathhouse, I heard my mom's voice. "Mem, yes, you're doing great, but don't rush so much." At that moment, I didn't know what to do, whether to barge in or leave. I just froze in place, not knowing what to do. Eventually, I came to my senses and went back into the house. I realized that it was my mother's choice, and they seemed to like each other. Maybe she deserved some happiness after all the hardships. The next morning, my mother told me that we were staying because William turned out to be the good man she had been looking for all along. In her eyes, I saw contentment, a warmth that had been missing for so long. It was strange, but I began to feel that maybe this was the right place for us. A month later, my mom announced with a smile that she was pregnant with William's baby. She looked genuinely happy, and for the first time I could see that she was looking forward to the future. A year later, she gave birth to my sister Emma. She was a beautiful baby, and my mom seemed to glow with happiness as she held her in her arms. Around the same time, I finally enrolled in technical college and moved into a dorm. It was hard for me to part ways with my mom and Jacob, but I knew I had to forge my own path. I'm happy for my mom, but listening to their lovemaking almost every night became too much for me. They're happy, and now I'm going to try to settle my life in the city and get a job here. I want to build a future for myself where I can stand on my own 2 feet and be proud of my mom. Living in the hostel has not been easy, but I am slowly getting used to it. The city is lively and full of opportunities, and at the technical school I met new friends. I hope to find a part-time job soon, maybe in a workshop or garage where I can use the skills I've learned. I often think about my mom and William, wondering how they are doing in the village. My sister Emma is growing up fast, and although I miss her presence, I know I need to focus on my own goals. My mother has found her happiness, and now it's time for me to find mine. I still remember that cold January night when everything changed for us. It was unexpected, but it brought us to where we were meant to be. My mom found love and security with William, and I found the courage to go out into the world on my own. Life is unpredictable, but sometimes it takes a broken-down car on a lonely road to get you exactly where you need to go.